Good morning, everyone. Happy Friday. Today is May 29th, 2020. Let me know if you can hear me okay, if the audio is coming through.
Hello, Ben. Good morning.
Good morning, Danielle, Fernanda, Jamilka, Kim.
Good morning.
All right, I think we'll go and get started. We've got some activities here that we want to try to conclude for this week. We started off this week thinking about answering the question, what is love? Then we went and did some activities yesterday about wisdom, answering the question, what is wisdom? Thinking about perspective, what it means. We worked in teams yesterday, seven different teams, looking at different ways of answering the question about perspective as it relates to wisdom. Today, we're going to conclude these activities by now bringing together the idea of love and wisdom. And so what I'd like to do is I'm sharing my screen, and hopefully you can see my screen. If you can't, let me know. Today, what we're going to do is we're going to continue working in the same teams as you did yesterday. So we're going to start by going to the Word document that we worked on yesterday. All right. Hopefully all of you have had a chance now to finish your sentence and also work with your teammates if you're working with others, to check each other's work. Today, what we're going to do is combine what you have, the three sentences, and I'd like for all of you working in your teams, I'd like for you to go back to the document on love and look at all of the list of different sentences that your classmates created as well as yourself. And I'd like for you to decide as a team, choose some ideas that come from this list and bring those ideas together with the sentences that you've developed yesterday. That is, I want you to try to combine the ideas that you have. If you're working on radical open-mindedness, all right, I want you to keep this idea that you have here and merge it with some aspect of love from the list that we developed earlier in the week, and bring those ideas together. Combine the ideas, combine it into, again, your three sentences. So I'd like for you to think again of another sentence stem, again, drawing on what you already have with some concept of love. And then once you've decided as a team on the sentence stem, take another look at the rest of the sentence based on each of the connectors and decide if any changes are needed. All right. So the idea here is, again, modification, modifying the ideas, bringing together and answering the question, what is love and what is wisdom, bringing those ideas together. We're going to continue working on three different versions of the same sentence stem using, again, the same connectors, so, but, or because. But I want you to keep the main points, right, as your focus. So Claudia and Chris, for example, they're going to continue thinking about radical open-mindedness, but now they're going to try to merge some idea from love from the last document and bring it in some way into their own sentence stem, modifying whatever needs to be modified. All right, that's one thing. Now, a couple of observations that I would like to make when you're looking at each of your sections. All right. So if you're talking about radical open-mindedness, try to develop a sentence stem that doesn't use the same words of the point that you're trying to make. So for example, in the case of radical open-mindedness, think of maybe a slightly more specific example or some other aspect, or maybe even a similar way of saying radical open-mindedness. Maybe there's another way of saying it. Use those words instead of using the same words that represents the point that you're trying to make. Right? So in the example of feed yourself ideas, right? We don't want it to use the phrase feed yourself ideas. We want either a synonym, right? Whether it's a word or a phrase, or maybe even an example, right? You can think of it as an example. Same way with empathy. Try to come up with a sentence stem without using the word empathy. Right? So again, think of an example, think of a detail, even another way of saying empathy without using the word empathy. When you're thinking about remove ideas from people, try to think of a sentence stem that does not include the words remove ideas from people, but maybe there's another way of saying this, or maybe that you offer a specific example that represents or falls under the category of remove ideas from people. If it helps, maybe go back to the video that you watched yesterday on this topic. Maybe you can get some additional ideas or words that you could use, or different ways of looking at your particular point to get some suggestions, to get some ideas about what it is you can include in your sentence stem. So two things. One is, let's bring in together the idea and the concept of love and wisdom based on what we've produced so far this week. And we still want to come up with a sentence stem. It could be a variation, right? With it, maybe you just modify a little bit what you already have, or maybe this means you need to change more, right? And the second thing is, try to avoid using exactly the same words that represents the point that you have been assigned to for answering the question, which perspective should you have? All right. So the idea here is, when we finish all of these, we're going to consolidate this and present it more. We'll take out some of the extra spacing and all of that to have kind of a philosophical document on love and wisdom when we finish. Okay. But again, let's try to bring together love and wisdom and avoid repeating the key terms, the key ideas for each of the 7 points. We'll continue working in the same document, wisdom.com, wisdom.docs. And we're going to be working in this document today, but you may have to go back to the other Word document that we worked on earlier this week to look at some of our sentences on love. Any questions, guys, today, working in today's activity? Okay, if there are no more questions, I'm going to go ahead and mute my mic. I will continue reviewing and leaving comments as necessary in the document. If anybody has any questions, unmute your mic. Feel free to jump in and ask away. Jamilka and Deamira, if you want to take a look, I'm not sure what happened, but it looked like we lost the point. I see that your sentence stem, but I think you're missing your point, your key point. So if you could add that back, please, and list your names out. And just list it right above your sentence stem. Your sentence stem should actually be a level 4 heading as well. So you might want to select that and check into styles and make sure that that's listed as a level 4 heading. For everyone, make sure that you have your point, and then just below the point, right, you need to include your sentence stem as a level 4 heading. Again, you can select the text. If you're looking at my document, I'll look at example here for me, go down. Yeah, so for example, here Fernanda has her point and her name. And then below that, this is listed as a level 3 heading. And then just below, she has her sentence stem. And you'll notice that her sentence stem just below her point under styles is a level 4. All right, so this is what I would like for you guys to do for each of your sections. And then below, she has her sentences numbered and single spaced. Okay, so this is the idea. This is the format, just so that we are all kind of doing the same thing. We want to have kind of a presentable document at the end of this. So I'm asking everyone to maintain these same formats, level 3 and level 4 heading. And again, just so that it looks nicer. Okay, if you guys have any questions about the formatting or how to change the formatting in Microsoft Word Online, let me know. Okay, guys, just a reminder, as you're developing your sentence stems and you're combining the idea of love and wisdom, try to also remember that sentence stems tend to be a little bit shorter. It's going to be the first part of a sentence that's going to lead into one of the 3 connectors: so, but, or because. So try to keep that in mind. And usually, again, sentence stems are a little bit shorter. This is going to be your level 4 heading that appears below your level 3 heading, the point that you're trying to make. Again, examples: radical open-mindedness, feed yourself ideas, being able to hold contradictions in your mind, etc. Also, as a reminder, make sure your sentence stem does not include the words of the point that you've been assigned. Okay, so again, if you're focusing on letting go of your ego, try to include a sentence stem that does not include the words letting go of your ego. Think of another way of saying letting go of your ego. You can also think of it in terms of providing an example or a detail that relates to letting go to your ego. All right, so this is an exercise in trying to write and use synonyms, and even writing and thinking specifically of some detail of the point that you've been assigned. All right, remember that we're addressing this question: which perspective should you have? It's about learning how to accept and deal with other perspectives. So you can keep that in mind, right? You can actually use the word perspective, perhaps. You can use the word wisdom, but try to avoid using the words that are representing the point that you're trying to make that's included in the level 3 heading, right? And for this exercise. Okay, so try to keep that in mind. If you need to, also review the list of things to avoid that appears at the top of the document. Try to avoid the personal pronoun it. And I think most of our cases, we're now avoiding the word or any phrase that includes the word important or any form of the word important. Words or phrases like it is necessary, it is vital, okay? And try to avoid those types of phrases. And yeah, so if you guys have any other questions, feel free to jump in and ask, or if you want me to look at something specific to your examples that you're developing here in this page. When you guys are developing your sentence stems and you're combining the idea of love and wisdom, one thing I would consider is to include the word love in your sentence stem. Just a reminder also, as you are changing the text, if you're working on or responding to one of my comments and you've already made the change, go ahead and remove the comment as you've made the changes to your text. If anyone is leaving a response to the message, I would recommend that you just ask me in these live sessions. Sometimes I miss the responses simply because we have a lot of comments along the right-hand side of the screen. So if I miss your comment and I don't respond, of course, if it's outside of class, you might send me a chat to draw my attention to your question because I may miss it. As you guys are working on your stems, one question that might come to mind when you're trying to combine the idea of love and wisdom, you could ask yourself the following question: how does love relate to radical open-mindedness? How does love relate to feeding yourself ideas? How does love relate to being able to hold contradictions in your mind? What would be an example of love in terms of holding contradictions in your mind? What would be an example of love and showing empathy? What is it? What would be an example of showing empathy that demonstrates love? What would be an example of showing love through removing ideas from people? Right? What would be an example of that? What would be an example of not just giving advice, but sharing perspective, but in a loving environment, someone that you love? What would that look like? And again, love here could, in all of these cases, it could be loving a friend, a family member, a significant other, maybe your boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, and wife. What would be an example of showing love and letting go of your ego? What would that look like? Can you provide an example? And maybe your sentence stem includes that example. And then you could include different connectors, so, but, and because, to show different aspects of that sentence stem. All right. So again, I would recommend trying to include the word love in each of your sentence stems, but maybe ask your question about, okay, what does love relate? How does it relate to my particular point that offers different ways of thinking about perspective, right? This all has to deal with wisdom, and you may or may not need to include the word wisdom. You certainly can, but you don't have to, because again, the point itself is a way to show wisdom or to discuss wisdom, to show perspective and discuss information about wisdom. Towards the end of class for today, just to summarize this task, okay? So today, in fact, I'm going to give everyone through tomorrow, if you need more time to complete the task. If you want to work later today, feel free to do so, or even tomorrow if you need the extra time. But today's activity is to combine the idea of love and wisdom, to combine the ideas that we developed earlier this week in our shared Word document. You can choose any of those ideas, right, to build on, to use in your sentence stem, but bring it in within the context of your point that relates to the question, which perspective should you have? So think about merging this information. Think about using the word love in your sentence stem. Make sure that your sentence stem is not too long, right? A sentence stem can be quite short, doesn't have to be really long. but it should represent an example of your particular point that you're working on. So again, as a suggestion, you might ask yourself, how does love relate to this idea? Let's say feeding yourself ideas. What would be an example? What would be some detailed or even a different way of looking or saying basically the same thing, but within the context of love? Again, it could be loving someone who is a family member, a friend, a significant other, right? There are many different contexts to loving a pet, right? Loving something about nature, right? So there's a lot of different ways that we can express love, and all of these are possibilities when looking at bringing together this idea of love and wisdom. Make sure you're careful with the formatting. It looks like most of us, I think, are on the right track. We've got a level 3 heading that represents our idea. We have a level 4 heading that represents our sentence stem. And then just below our sentence stem, we have our sentences using the connectors so, but, and because. All right. So finally, also just double check the list of things to avoid, primarily the personal pronoun it. Phrases like it is important, it is necessary, it is essential. And here I have a suggestion to also try to avoid using the same words that are used to express the main point that you're trying to write about. So again, in the case of radical open-mindedness, we want to try to avoid the words radical open-mindedness. Again, thinking of an example, some detail, etc. All right, so again, this is an assignment. There's nothing to upload in the virtual classroom. So as you complete your sentences to this document, that's all you need to do. All right. There's nothing to upload to the virtual classroom. Although there is an assignment in virtual classroom, there's nothing to upload. I'm going to give everyone through tomorrow if you need extra time to complete the task. My goal is to take this once you have completed it. We've checked the grammar, to have 2 separate philosophical documents, right? One for Prope A and the other for Prope B. And looking at your philosophical stance, your ideas about love and wisdom, right? Again, looking at this question, which perspective should you have? Any questions, guys, regarding today's activity? You guys are writing some really good ideas, right? I know that this takes a little bit of time to think about, what you want to say, but this is the whole point: is to try to think a little bit about what it means to be wise and to love someone or something. What is it? What does it mean, right? And so this addresses this idea of trying to bring these ideas together. They're very open terms and concepts, but we want to try to make them a little bit more concrete, more specific to what we believe or what you believe, right? In terms of these 2 ideas. Any questions, guys, about this week's activity? All right. So I guess if there are no more questions, we'll go ahead and conclude today. And we'll meet again on Monday, right? Enjoy your weekend, and we'll talk to everybody on Monday. All right. Thanks, guys, and take care.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.